Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into, well, atomic habits.
Ooh, a classic.
Yeah, we're looking at selections from James Clear's book,
Yeah.
all about tiny changes leading to big results.
Hmm.
I'm excited to explore this stuff. Who knew that just like 1% tweaks could make such a difference?
Yeah, Atomic Habits, it really changes how we think about self-improvement.
Right.
It's not those hugey overnight changes, but it's the small stuff, the consistent actions that kind of build on each other.
Yeah, like that British cycling story he talks about blew my mind.
Oh, yeah.
So picture this, right? Early 2000s,
Okay.
British cycling not exactly crushing it on the world stage.
Right, right.
And then
Thunderdogs.
yeah, total underdogs. Then Dave Brailsford comes in with this radical idea. He calls it the aggregation of marginal gains.
Love that.
I know, right? So cool.
So cool.
So basically, he breaks down like every aspect of cycling, right?
Yeah.
And just tries to improve each little thing by just 1%.
Tiny, tiny little bits.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But those gains, they like snowball into something massive.
Hugey.
It's crazy. Like they went from finding the most aerodynamic fabrics to like even teaching the riders the best hand washing techniques.
What?
No, I'm serious. To avoid getting colds,
Wow.
they even painted the team truck white so they could spot dust easier.
To see the dust.
Yeah, because dust means like tiny imperfections, drag.
Oh, that's fascinating. I never would have thought of that.
It's wild, right? All about minimizing those tiny losses because they add up.
They do over time.
And the results, well, they speak for themselves.
Yeah.
They went from like one gold medal in 76 years to totally dominating the Olympics.
Dominating.
It's insane.
It really makes you think
does, man.
about where you could apply that in your own life.
Totally.
Like-
Like what if you got just 1% better at focusing each day?
Ooh, good one.
Right. How much more could you get done by the end of the year?
Yeah.
Clear says like nearly 38 times better. It's that whole compounding thing, like interest on your savings, but for your own growth.
The compound interest of self-improvement, yeah.
I love that. But okay, here's where Clear kind of throws a curveball.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says, forget about goals.
What?
I know, right?
That's like the opposite of what we always hear.
I know, but he says, focus on systems instead.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like goals, that's what keeps me motivated,
I get that, totally.
Yeah.
But his point is that winners and losers often have the same goals, right?
Right.
Like everyone in a marathon wants to win,
Obviously.
but it's the runner's training, their diet, their mental game, their system that actually gets them across the finish line.
Oh, so it's like the system is what actually helps you achieve the goal.
Exactly. It's what provides that framework for consistency, Keeps you going even after you hit a goal.
That's interesting. Have you ever noticed that in your own life? Like where your systems or lack thereof maybe had a bigger impact than just setting a goal?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Like with my writing, if I have a set time to write each day, even if I don't feel like it,
Right.
it makes way more of a difference than just saying, I want to finish this article.
Makes sense. Now, another interesting thing from Atomic Habits, it's how our habits actually shape our identity.
Oh, yeah, and vice versa, right?
I bet you've got a good example of that.
Oh, absolutely. Clear tells this story about this guy, right? Struggling with nail biting his whole life.
Oh, I hate that.
The worst. And he tries everything to stop. Nothing works.
Oh, no.
Then one day, he gets a manicure,
Okay.
and suddenly he's like proud of his nails.
Yeah.
And that pride, that was enough to break the habit.
Really?
Yeah, because it changed how he saw himself.
Wow. So it's like the habit changed how he saw himself, and then that changed the habit.
Exactly. It's powerful stuff, right?
It really is. Makes you want to examine your own habits, doesn't it?
Totally. Like,
Yeah.
what identity are your current habits casting votes for?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. Are you actually living in alignment with who you want to be?
Ooh.
So now, to actually help us build those better habits, Clear gives us what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
They're like the foundation of the whole book.
The foundation, got it.
And the first one is make it obvious.
Make it obvious.
Which is all about, those cues that trigger our habits.
The triggers, yeah.
Speaking of obvious cues, that story about the paramedic who instantly knew her father-in-law was having a heart attack
Oh, yeah, at the family gathering.
just by looking at him. Talk about expert pattern recognition,
Oh,
right?
like, wow. It shows how our brains are just like finely tuned to pick up on those tiny signals
It's incredible. We're often acting on cues without even realizing it.
without even realizing it.
And that's why becoming aware of them is so important.
For changing habits, yeah.
Exactly. And Clear has this tool. He calls it the habit scorecard.
Okay.
Have you ever tried making one?
You know, I haven't. I'm picturing you with like your notebook and a very official pen scoring every little thing you do.
Huh. That's a great image.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually I have.
Really?
Yeah. You basically list out all your daily habits, and then you score them.
Score them. How?
Good, bad, or neutral, based on, their long-term impact.
Interesting. What about you? Have you ever tried it?
It's simple, but it's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really helps shine a light on those things we just do without thinking.
Like taking inventory.
Exactly. Okay, so we've made those habits obvious.
Okay.
Now, how do we make them attractive?
Ooh, good question.
This is where, like, our social nature comes in.
Okay.
Clear talks about our innate desire to belong and how that impacts our habits.
So it's not just about willpower, it's about like our social environment.
Right, like that example with the Polgar sisters.
The chess player.
Yes, chess prodigies. Grew up in a family that was all about chess.
Intense.
Intense. But for them, practice wasn't a chore. It was just part of their family's culture.
That makes sense.
Imagine if we all had that kind of support.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, what if going to the gym was just like a normal part of your family's routine?
Totally. Social norms can make even the toughest habits more appealing.
Like, it's not just you against the world.
Exactly. Have you ever joined like a group, a gym, a book club, anything where a behavior became easier because of the group?
Oh, totally. Like when I joined that running club, suddenly those early morning runs were way more fun.
Right.
Because I had people to share them with. It wasn't just me versus my alarm clock.
I feel that.
It's like built-in accountability.
Totally. Okay, so we've got obvious, we've got attractive.
Okay, what's next?
Now let's talk about easy.
Easy. As in like making the habit easy to do.
Exactly. And this is where Clear introduces, wait for it, the 2-minute rule.
2-minute rule. Sounds almost too simple.
I know, right? But he swears by it.
Really? But some habits, they just take so much more effort.
I hear you. But the idea is to reduce that initial friction.
Okay.
So you break any new habit down into something that takes less than 2 minutes to do.
Less than 2 minutes. Okay.
Like instead of read before bed, it's read 1 page.
Oh, I see.
Instead of run 3 miles, it's put on my running shoes.
So simple.
It's like creating those gateway habits.
Gateway habits.
They get you moving in the right direction.
I like that. It's like tricking your brain into starting.
A little bit. Clear actually shares his own example. He changes into his workout clothes every day at 5:15 p.m.
No matter what.
No matter what. It makes the workout almost inevitable.
It removes that decision fatigue.
Exactly. It's like setting your future self up for a win.
Clever. Okay, so we've got obvious, attractive, and easy.
What's left?
Well, how do we make those good habits really stick?
The million-dollar question, right?
Say it is. And that's where the fourth law comes in. Make it satisfying.
Make it satisfying.
And this is a tough one because, we're wired for instant gratification.
Right.
But so many of the good habits, they pay off in the long run.
It's like we're battling our own biology.
It really is.
Yeah.
So how do we make those tiny wins, the ones that might not feel all that rewarding in the moment, how do we make them actually feel good?
Yeah, how do we bridge that gap?
Well, Claire's got some ideas.
I'm all ears.
This is where things get really interesting. Well, one thing is Claire talks about these like reinforcement strategies.
Okay.
So like think about Wrigley's chewing gum, right?
Okay.
Why did it become such a hit back in the late 1800s?
I don't know, because people needed fresh breath.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But really it's because chewing gum was just pleasurable.
Oh, I see.
It's like a sensory experience people enjoyed.
So it's not about the end goal. It's about actually enjoying the process.
Exactly. And that helps make the habit stick.
It's like, oh, toothpaste, right?
Yeah.
All those minty flavors, they're not actually making it clean any better, are they?
Probably not.
But they make it more enjoyable.
Right.
So we're more likely to brush regularly.
See, even small tweaks to make a habit feel good.
They make a big difference.
Huge.
Funny you should mention that. I actually switched toothpaste brands recently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I couldn't stand the aftertaste of my old one.
I feel that.
So I guess I'm proof that making it satisfying actually works.
It's real. But it points to a bigger thing,
Okay.
We're surrounded by all these temptations all the time.
Oh, tell me about it.
Junk food, social media, you name it.
All the instant gratification.
Exactly. They hijack our brain's reward system,
Makes it so hard to resist.
So hard. It's like we're fighting an uphill battle against our own biology.
So how do we level the playing field then?
Well, one thing Clear suggests is to bundle a habit you want to do with something you need to do.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So, like, listen to your favorite podcast while you go for a walk,
Okay.
or only watch your favorite TV show while you're folding laundry.
Sneaking in the good stuff.
Exactly. Attach it to something that needs to get done anyway.
Love it. What else?
Another good one is habit tracking.
Oh, yeah.
Visualizing your progress, it makes those small wins feel more real.
Yeah.
And that sense of accomplishment, that can be really motivating.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of habit tracking. There's just something so satisfying about seeing those check marks on a calendar, you know?
Totally, even if the habit itself isn't that exciting.
Right. But you're like, yes, I did it.
It's a visual reminder that you're moving forward.
Like a little dopamine boost keeps you going.
Exactly. But, life happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
You get busy, things come up.
Best laid plans.
Gone. So it's important to have a plan for when those habits inevitably, break down.
Oh, for sure. I've had so many perfect streaks broken because something unexpected happened. It could be so discouraging, like you just want to give up.
Right. But that's why Clear talks about this never miss twice rule.
Okay, I like that.
So if you miss a day, it's fine, but don't let it become 2 days in a row.
Damage control.
Exactly. Get back on track ASAP.
Stop that snowball before it gets too big.
Right. Speaking of stopping snowballs.
Let's talk about breaking bad habits.
The flip side.
This is where Clear gets really clever. He kind of flips the 4 laws on their head to help us tackle those unwanted behaviors.
Ooh, okay, I'm intrigued.
So, like, if the first law for building good habits is make it obvious, for breaking bad habits, it's make it invisible,
Oh,
right?
well, that makes sense.
Remove the cues that trigger that bad behavior, like trying to cut back on snacking.
Yeah.
Don't keep bowls of chips on the counter.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much our environment just, controls us.
It
Right?
really is. It's like
Yeah.
those cues have this magnetic pull,
It's so true.
even when we know we shouldn't give in.
And then the opposite of make it attractive is, you guessed it,
Make it unattractive.
bingo.
Yeah.
Reframe your thinking to highlight the negative consequences of that bad habit.
So,
So instead of focusing on the, fleeting pleasure of eating a whole bag of cookies, right?
oh, the guilt.
The guilt. Remind yourself of how you'll feel afterwards.
Ugh, I can picture it now.
Sluggish, guilty, maybe even physically uncomfortable.
Suddenly those cookies don't seem so tempting.
Right. It's like shining a light on the dark side of the habit.
So we're not blinded by the initial, allure.
Exactly. Next up, make it difficult.
The opposite of make it easy. Got it.
Increase the friction, put obstacles in the path of that bad habit.
So if I'm trying to watch less TV, I could put the remote in a drawer in another room.
Yes.
Make it a little harder to just mindlessly turn it on.
Or even unplug the TV altogether.
Ooh, radical.
Gotta do what you gotta do. And finally, we flip make it satisfying into...
But unsatisfying.
Oi.
Okay, this is where accountability comes in, right? Like having to answer to someone if you slip up.
Absolutely. An accountability partner, it adds a cost to inaction,
Yeah, knowing someone else is watching
Right.
and that you don't want to let them down.
That can be really motivating.
It's like having a cheerleader and a referee all rolled into one.
I love that. Now, Clear also talks about tailoring habits to your personality.
Oh, yeah. Finding what works for you.
Exactly. Figure out your strengths and play to them.
It's like self-awareness is key, right?
Big time. Understanding your tendencies, your preferences, it can set you up for success.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Right. What works for one person might completely flop for another.
It's like finding the right workout routine or the right diet,
Totally. It's all about experimentation
Trial and error.
until you find what clicks.
It's like finding a game where the odds are in your favor.
Love that.
Yeah.
But even with the best strategies, there's that risk of getting bored,
Oh, yeah.
or complacent.
How do we keep those good habits fresh, engaging?
Well, Clear talks about this Goldilocks rule.
Goldilocks rule. Okay, this should be good.
It basically says we're most motivated when we're working on tasks that are right at the edge of our abilities.
Oh, interesting.
Not too easy, not too hard, just right.
That sweet spot.
Exactly. But as we get better, we got to keep raising the bar,
Right.
push ourselves a bit further each time. Otherwise, we get stuck.
It's like that saying, the greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom.
Ooh, I like
Right.
that one.
Right. We got to find that spark, that joy in the process,
Even when it gets tough.
even when it gets tough. But that's what separates the pros from the amateurs. Right.
Well, tell me more about that.
Well, Claire says pros stick to the schedule, even when they don't feel like it.
Discipline.
Amateurs, They let life get in the way,
Makes sense. It's about showing up consistently,
even when you're not feeling inspired.
even when you're not feeling it.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
any skill, the more we practice, the better we get.
Right. But even when we become proficient, like really good at a habit, there's always room for improvement, right? How do we avoid just going through the motions?
Yeah. How do we keep getting better?
That's where deliberate practice comes in.
Deliberate practice. Okay.
Focusing on those small areas where we can still improve. Clear talks about Pat Riley,
For the basketball coach.
legendary coach of the Los Angeles Lakers.
All right. Yeah.
He had this system called career best effort,
Career best effort.
CBE. He challenged his players to improve their output by at least 1% over the season.
1% again.
There it is again. Not just in points or stats, but in every aspect of their game.
Even the little things.
The tiny details that most people overlook.
It's about those nuances, the small stuff that adds up over time.
Exactly. And Claire, he encourages us to find ways to measure our progress, not just to track results, but to pinpoint areas where we can still get better.
So it's not just about doing the habit, it's about mastering it.
Mastering it. He even suggests keeping a decision journal.
A decision journal.
Yeah, to reflect on your choices, learn from your mistakes.
Ooh, I love journaling. And this sounds like a great way to be more intentional about your choices.
It is. Learning from your experiences, good and bad.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. From tiny changes to systems, the 4 laws, their inversions, the Goldilocks rule.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. But I think it all comes back to this. Our habits are the building blocks of our lives.
They shape who we are, what we achieve, and the legacy we leave behind.
It's exciting, but also a little daunting, right?
It is. Knowing that each little choice contributes to that bigger picture.
Makes you want to choose wisely.
It does. Now, Clear reminds us that habits, they ultimately shape our identity.
Ooh, that's deep.
They're not just about what we do, but about who we become.
Every action is a vote for the person we want to be.
Exactly. It's a continuous process. We're always evolving, refining those habits, becoming better versions of ourselves,
Like those 1% improvements adding up over time.
leading to extraordinary results.
Amazing. Well, we've thrown a lot of information at you today, so let's take a moment to reflect, and then we'll come back with a final thought to leave you with.
Okay, yeah, I needed a minute to process all that.
There's a lot to unpack there for sure.
It really is. It's amazing, like, how these small choices, the stuff we do every day,
Yeah.
they add up to big changes over time.
Like we're shaping our future selves one little habit at a time.
Exactly. And Clear's book, it gives us the tools to like actually do that consciously, right?
To become like master sculptors of our own lives? Yeah, totally. It's not just about, checking off goals. It's about becoming the kind of person who lives with purpose.
Intentionally.
Yeah. And that never really ends, does it?
It's a journey, for
Yep.
sure. Always evolving, always refining, becoming better versions of ourselves. Like those 1% improvements.
Right. They can apply to anything.
Anything.
So before we wrap up our deep dive on atomic habits,
Okay.
let's do like a quick recap.
Sounds good.
What were some of the key takeaways that really stuck with you?
Well, I think starting with that idea of tiny changes, right?
Yeah. Tiny changes, big results.
Exactly. Small adjustments, but when you apply them consistently.
Like the British cycling team.
Right. Amazing transformation. And then that whole thing about systems versus goals,
Oh, so important. Systems provide that framework, for consistency.
which is key, right? If you want long-term success.
Can't just rely on motivation all the time.
Nope, you need that structure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we talk about the 4 laws of behavior change.
Make it obvious. Make it
Yeah.
attractive. Make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Such a practical framework for building good habits.
Step by step. And then don't forget, we flip them on their head.
Right. To break bad habits.
Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. You know the drill.
Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. So clever.
That's genius. We also touched on tailoring habits to your personality.
Oh, yeah. Figure out what works for you.
Play to your strengths. Experimentation is key.
Absolutely. And that Goldilocks rule, gotta find that sweet spot, right?
Not too hard, not too easy. Just enough challenge to stay motivated.
Keep things interesting. So much good stuff packed into this book, really.
It all comes back to that idea that, like, our habits, they're the building blocks of our lives.
They shape who we are, what we do, what we achieve, our impact on the world.
It's pretty powerful stuff.
It is. It makes you realize the importance of choosing them carefully.
For sure. Well, before we go, I want to leave our listener with something to think about.
Okay, I like this.
It builds on those 4 laws we talked about.
All right, lay it on me.
Think about a bad habit you have. something you really want to change,
Okay, got it.
but you just can't seem to shake it.
We've all been there.
Now ask yourself, which of the 4 laws is actually working for that habit?
Oh, that's a good question.
Making you repeat it even though you know you shouldn't.
So, like, is the cue too obvious? Is the reward too satisfying?
Exactly. Once you figure out which law is at play, you can start to change it.
Use those laws to your advantage.
Exactly. Well, that's all the time we have for today. But to our listener, I highly recommend checking out James Clear's Atomic Habits.
It's a good one.
You could start applying these ideas to your own life today. Remember, start small, stay consistent, and embrace those tiny changes.
They have the power to transform you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.